Me down here, walking from my office to the belly. Hey, Dario. Very good. Can't complain.
Already?
Yeah.
That's good to hear. Both directions, and I'm still always a little.
It's awesome.
Okay, you know if we got the MOA with Hello Yes done?
Yes.
Alright.
Yep, that was done last week.
I got made fun of on that. They were talking about elected officials. We're doing mutual aid, so they've got to figure out how much people get paid and if they do overtime, how much they have to get paid. And they asked, how much do council members make? And it was like, and Teresa had to be like, well, if you did it by the hour, less than minimum wage. And there was a chuckle apparently.
They fall. Thanks, guys.
You're right on time, Chair.
You guys all ready to go?
We're ready to go if you are.
All right, are we live?
We are live.
Excellent. All right, let's call the meeting to order at 10 a.m. Let's see, no one's remote. No modifications to the agenda. Let's do roll call.
Chair Krepke
Here.
and Councilmember Alvarez. Councilmember Fleming is not here, so let the record reflect. We have everyone here with the exception of one.
All right. No modifications to the agenda. No. Announcements of any kind.
No announcements on the agenda, Chair.
All right, approval of minutes. Do you have anything for the November 12th minutes? I reviewed the minutes so I could vote on them, so seeing no objections, we will approve those as submitted. Public comments on non-agenda items. All right, seeing none from the public, singular. We'll move on. New regular meeting time discussion. Who's that assigned to?
Chair, I can walk us through that. So as we're moving forward into the new year, staff has been having conversations with the respective committee members regarding schedules and what will work with both personal schedules and also council schedules. The regular time that we have stuck to in the past does pose a conflict for council member Fleming moving forward. We also missed our January meeting. So the recommendation has been to pick up the bi-monthly meetings next month, starting in April. That will make up for the missed meeting in January. And then to hold these meetings moving forward on the second Monday in the morning of every month bi-monthly thereafter. We've talked with the individual members of this committee, and we've also talked with staff. This is a time that does seem to work for everybody, and we just want to put it up there with the two of you for any discussion that you might want to have or any guidance to staff. And then would recommend that if we want to solidify this date moving forward, that we do it by motion.
That would move us to April, June, August, October, December.
Yep.
Okay.
And by sticking with the second Mondays, we seem to avoid any major holidays that way.
Yeah, I know that was one of the concerns we had.
Yeah.
Any comments? You good with that?
No objection. No,
Okay.
I'd support the motion. I'll move that we adopt the new schedule.
Second.
All right, let's vote.
Well, any comments from the public? All
Comments?
No.
right, seeing no comments
All right.
from the public, singular.
Chair Krepke
Aye.
and Councilmember Alvarez.
Aye.
All right, let the record reflect. The motion passes.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Please have those calendar invites sent out as soon as possible. So because I will forget. Moving on to 8.1, partner report, Rosie pilot project report.
Yes, Chair, happy to welcome, everyone knows Cadence with the Downtown Action Organization. Cadence is here to talk about Rosie, and I do have the slides here. If you want me to go through them, we can share them.
Yeah, Jack suggested we just switch seats. Does that work?
That works for me.
Okay.
But if anything goes wrong with the meeting, now you're running.
That's, I think I can handle it. Good morning, Vice Mayor Alvarez, Councilmember Okrepke. I think you've all heard me talk about this in various capacities in the past, but I'm
I
gonna,
think we need to screen share. Sorry.
oh.
Yeah. Oops.
So I'm gonna touch base on the Rosie, the trolley pilot program that we ran last May. From 4th through September 2024.
Hey, Jack, how do we re-share this? Thank you. Jack's the pro.
There we go. Thank you.
I always have to look at the clock to make sure it's still morning.
Perfect. So the DAO in 2024 was looking into ways to address connectivity issues between Railroad Square and Courthouse Square, and which comes up frequently between locals, tourists, people staying on either side of the square, having confusion about how to get across or thinking that it's the mall is impassable. Not to mention with SMART on that side, providing some type of last mile connectivity between SMART and the downtown area or the Courthouse Square area. So as we were looking at concepts, we kind of narrowed in on finding a very small vehicle to test the concept. And we wanted to find something electric to bring in sponsors that would get behind an electric concept. So we found a trolley company with a 12-passenger electric trolley, and we set up a route between Courthouse Square and Railroad Square that ran from May 15th to September 29th. So I'm just going to talk through marketing data, some survey responses we got, lesson learned, and some future opportunities. So I touched base on this already. So the hard costs for the program were around $65,000. That does not include marketing. That was simply leasing and operating the trolley. So that was a singular contract with Bruin's Trolley Company. We had 4 partners who contributed to that. City of Santa Rosa was one. Visit Santa Rosa handled all of our marketing and was excited to get on board because of the component of connecting overnight hotel guests with either side of the freeway. And then SMART, of course, looking at it as an option to kind of take a look at last mile, and Sonoma Clean Power, just excited to be supporting kind of green concepts in the community. So VSR handled all of the marketing. They had a dedicated webpage, lots of social media posts. They handled all the printed materials. So there were flyers, posters, brochures distributed throughout Santa Rosa. We got our ridership data from the trolley company. So when we look at the program, we had about 3,700 riders. Majority rode on Saturday, which was a full length day, as opposed to the other days, which were all 4 hours of operation. So it's a little bit skewed when you look at it like that. When you look at the peak days and hours, Sundays were the most popular, and with 2 to 3 in the afternoon being a really high ridership time. And then in the evenings, 7 to 8 p.m., which were, let me back up. So it operated Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from 5 to 9 p.m. and then Saturday from noon to 9 p.m. and Sunday from noon to 4. So those evening hours were also very popular. You could see people were using it to get back and forth. With, again, Sunday being the most utilized day by the hour. This dives a little bit into what I was just talking about. One of the interesting things we saw as far as days of the week was that Wednesday, when there was a Wednesday night market, saw a big spike. We don't know for sure if that was people going from Railroad Square to the market or people literally being at the market and riding the trolley kind of as part of their market experience, because it was very visible. It came right through the event. It rang its bell. People would get on and off. But we did see a lot of ridership on the days when there were Wednesday night markets. And then once that ended in late July, early August, Wednesdays started to look more like Thursdays and Fridays. And then again, by riders per hour, Sundays were the most popular with about 11 riders an hour. Something looks funny there. Okay, well, we did something got messed up on this, but we did a survey on the trolley. The survey was incentivized. It was a very short survey. It was incentivized by local business gift cards. So we know that it was a little bit flawed. Most people who are staying overnight are probably not going to take even a minute to fill out a survey if they aren't going to use the potential benefit from it. So we got a lot of locals who completed that survey. And it was interesting. We learned kind of the most popular stop, which was the California Welcome Center, which was billed essentially as the start of the program. So we knew that a lot of people were heading there to start their route if they were doing the full circle of downtown. The average number of people in a party was 2.9. So we saw that a lot of families were riding. And that was kind of consistent throughout all of the results. We saw that it was a lot of people with young kids taking the trolley. 88% were from Sonoma County, which again ties into what I was just saying about the locals being more easily incentivized. But we also saw hotel staff shared that they got positive feedback from their constituents who were utilizing it, especially on the weekends. They said it didn't serve their conference crowd during the week as much as it served their weekend visitors. We did a follow-up survey to those who did the initial survey. So again, this is a little bit skewed because it's mostly locals. We got some positive feedback there and a little bit of a better glimpse at the economic impact that Rosie caused. So the majority of people who rode on the trolley shopped, dined, or saw a show or concert as part of their experience. 2/3 of the riders took the full loop, which again shows that it really had entertainment and activity value as opposed to addressing the initial concept we were looking at of kind of crosstown connectivity. And then 36% of people were drawn downtown specifically to ride on the trolley, while 64% rode because they were already downtown. So we saw that it was bringing people downtown, but most of the people were downtown when they decided to ride. And then 85% of the respondents rode the trolley just for fun, and 15% took rides with the intention of getting to a very specific downtown location. So it didn't so much meet the need that we were trying to address, but we did learn some kind of helpful lessons through the program. And the first was the need for attractions and activities for local families. People were excited about it. The most feedback we got was from families. This is so great, something to do with my kids in the downtown area. So that was a big piece. We heard from some of the hotels on the Welcome Center that tourists who were riding were thinking they might be getting a tour with it as opposed to just a loop. So there is an interest and a need there for some type of guide-led tour, which is an interesting concept that could be combined with any sort of future trolley program. As far as connecting smart riders, we were not operating during the traditional commute hours for the most part. We did hit some of the back end, but as it was a pilot program, we didn't really expect to have anyone change their habits because it's not something they could rely on permanently. But we did see a large amount of weekend smart visitors, so people coming up to Santa Rosa for the day for something to do, utilizing smart and then hopping right on the trolley to kind of get the lay of the land when they got to Santa Rosa. So that was really neat. And the Welcome Center emphasized that as one of the largest groups of people who would consistently ask about the trolley. They were coming up to do both things, which, you know, we advertised through Smart. So they were seeing it at other locations where Smart was located. I don't think a huge surprise, but the eco-friendly approach was appreciated by people here in Sonoma County. They liked that it was green, that it was electric, that it was cute and small, minimal impact. And then the scheduling and tracking was a little bit of an issue because it just rode on a loop, so we couldn't exactly tell people when it would be back. So if you know Santa Rosa and you know downtown, and you think it'll be about 15 minutes until it comes back to you, you might realize I could walk there faster if you weren't needing to rely on the trolley to get around, which we also saw that it served that need. And when there was really hot weather, people used it. And when there were people who had difficulties walking, whether through injury or if they were older and the distance was a little more challenging, they waited and they rode the trolley, and they loved that it was an option for them. And then again, weekend hours were busy. So we saw that that kind of happy hour time that we thought it might get utilized was not as well utilized as Saturday and Sunday. So at the end of the program, we looked at kind of what could be some future options for this. And one of the, so we just kind of went through in discussion, there was 4 things that would meet different needs that the program identified. So the first was to kind of run a similar program again. We did a little bit of work at the beginning and could not find a small electric trolley. They are few and far between. Lots of people willing to custom make something, which obviously goes far outside of our $65,000 budget. But there are trolley companies out there that will lease trolleys, will provide drivers, will kind of meet whatever route and timing needs that are requested. Not our resource, so I acknowledge that, but Rosie the trolley, obviously we did a play on that in our name of Rose E. But lots of people asked about the real Rosie and whether or not she would be available for something like this. And depending on what is of interest, there's an option there as well, especially if you look potentially at the tours for tourists, because we know Rosie's utilized for holiday tours and other activities that could help meet that need. As well as, you know, if there was a couple days throughout the year where Rosie just ran around and people could hop on and off, we assume it would be a pretty big draw, given that families were very interested. So if it was offered less frequently, there still might be an option there. An electric tram. So this goes back to trying to, you know, have a minimal impact, fit in with some of the city's goals around climate. There are lots of electric trams available that could run the same thing. You kind of miss out on some of the fun, historic nostalgia feel that lots of people mentioned, but it would serve the need of connecting both sides of downtown. And then finally, you know, Petaluma launched their Luma Go rideshare app, which also something like that could be an option if you're looking at the connectivity. But we didn't see so much the need for that yet in the first round of this pilot. So those are kind of the 4 things that our team looked at as potential future options based on what we learned from the first round. So I think that's it for me.
Any questions?
Yes, couple. The weekend hours, Saturday was approximately 3 hours or 4 hours more than Sunday,
It was 4 hours more, yeah.
4 hours more. And looking back in hindsight, do you think that it would have been advisable or benefited if we had extended the Sunday hours, seeing them out? Because you're saying that Sunday was proven to be one of the most busiest of days, is that correct?
Yeah, so I think the short answer is not really. We did start Sundays out a little earlier. In the first couple months, we were looking at an earlier hour to hit the brunch crowd, and that didn't really pick up as much. When we shifted Sunday later in the day, we saw more ridership, but I think probably the hours that ended up being missing were like 5 to 9 p.m. And I think probably on a Sunday in Santa Rosa, we would not have seen ridership during those hours because it just tends to be pretty quiet.
Because I imagine when people come to Santa Rosa, they're gonna come in early and either leave really late or somewhere in the middle, right?
Yeah,
Going back to where they go back, be smart.
and I think those hours tend to be later on Saturday than they are Sunday.
And in regards to the cost of actually owning a trolley for the city of Santa Rosa, or in this case, opposed to leasing, what is the difference? Because you said 65,000 isn't enough, but what, have you looked at the actual cost?
The cost so you mean the cost to like purchase an
Purchase.
electric trolley?
As well as the operational cost, which I'm sure
Mhm.
equals the cost of the actual vehicle as well. right?
Yeah, my recollection from when we looked into this months ago is that the cost to purchase a trolley is somewhere north of 150,000. If you're looking at a small electric trolley. We did try to look into the possibility of converting a gas trolley into an electric trolley. We didn't quite figure out the cost around that because you can get less expensive gas trolleys, especially when you're talking about something at a smaller capacity. Because all of our numbers, right, we had a 12, technically there were 11 open seats on that trolley. So even when we had kind of a higher percentage of people riding, it was still only, 6 or 7 people. If you have a 30+ passenger trolley, like Rosie the trolley, that, the number would have been.
And the 150 was gas operated?
That at the time was, I think, electric.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the leasing cost for this vehicle that we used?
So the whole program cost to operate this was
You said at the beginning.
65,000.
Okay, so 65,000. Okay.
Yeah.
And I believe my last question, more of a recommendation, the tour, I think that's a great idea. And it's actually great that we have Meredith here today and how we can actually incorporate art underneath that overpass to make it part of that tour feeling that they were expecting out of the service, right?
Yeah.
So it's just more of a recommendation than a question.
Yeah. And we did have, there are people who are interested in looking at that kind of like Disneyland tram concept as an opportunity for connectivity. It was suggested to me recently that one of those types of vehicles could actually drive through the mall. I haven't verified that. I'm
That's
not
like the
sure.
Mall of America, right?
It would be very interesting to try that, but I have not looked into that concept, having something small enough to drive through.
Well, I know for decades, we as a
Well,
city.
before we get into the
Go ahead.
discussion,
Yes.
let's just do the procedural
Mhm.
necessities
Mhm.
and go to public comment. Seeing nobody here, we're gonna close public comment. Now we can have our discussion with
Mhm.
comments.
Well, my, actually, it would be both a comment and a question. The comment aspect of it would be, for decades, we've looked at how to connect downtown with Railroad Square. The question is, do we know in the past any studies that have looked at that to look at the cost of doing the connectivity? I know that when the county was speaking of bringing their services to downtown Santa Rosa, we thought of a corridor, but I'm wondering if there are other studies that have looked at that connectivity cost.
Yeah, I haven't, I have heard of a number of different options for connectivity over the years, but I'm not aware of any specific studies that have kind of singled out one of those options and as ideal and attached a cost to it. But I don't know. I mean, Gabe or Scott would be better
That's one
voice
of
to
the
answer that.
historical questions.
There have been studies that have been done in the past, and we're happy to bring that item as a future discussion item to this committee if you'd like to have that conversation.
Well, we've seen that this is such a more effective and efficient.
Yeah, I think for me, like, I wrote it, I liked it. You know, we always hear about how we need to have Railroad Square and downtown more connected and from both sides, right? The businesses in downtown want people from Railroad Square to come over and vice versa. And I think this is great. Looking forward at options, you know, I think, I don't think we'll get Rosie from Parks and Rec.
I don't.
I think they would very much decline that. But, you know, that's not to say that there aren't other options. And I would like to see this, you know, continue going forward if financially feasible. I think there is opportunity. The the tour concept is interesting. I know that there's areas in the country that contract with trolley services. I jumped on one in Savannah when I was down there a few years ago, and it's like $20 or something like that, and you roll around and they point out everything, and you can get on and off whenever you want. So it's like, it's transportation mixed with the historical aspect. I don't know if we have the larger amount of historical relevance that someplace like Savannah does or Boston to necessitate something like that. But I do think, you know, if we do have drivers that are maybe trained, or we work with like I think there's a historical society in Santa Rosa, you know, even if it's just like, hey, this is Courthouse Square, it's called that because,
Yeah.
you know, and point out the art we have there, like Unum and whatever else. I think that would be interesting for tourists. I do totally understand the issues with timing. Like, oh, this is great. I hop on. When's it coming back? Soon. You know, like if you have dinner reservations or going to a show, that's you know, you kind of need a more concrete answer than that. So yeah, I'm open to more options. I'm not huge on the Luma Go type option, but you know, whether it be an electric tram or the trolley again, I'd love to see it come back and we can financially make it happen. I think we saw in the comments there from the public that it is something that is well liked. And based on the response and the ridership, I mean, as a pilot program, that's kind of what you want to see out of a pilot program, is something that's being used that much, it's getting that kind of response. And, you know, maybe if this is something we continue to do, we can kind of encourage our local partners to beautify some areas. Maybe if it's like the underpass, doing something like other places we've seen that have like neon lights and paint and stuff like that. So, yeah, I like the opportunities here. I like the options. I'd like to see this come forward. It's in terms of other options. I mean, I think that would be that we've studied in the past. That would be something that we would have to work with probably Simon on, which the feasibility of that, I don't know. I don't even know what percentage to put on that. Whereas if we're doing this that we've already done, it's a lot easier, you know, than reinventing the wheel. So, yeah, I think those are my comments. Is there anything you all would like to add on that?
Well, I'll add that, so we are not able to get this trolley back. The company that we worked with is not a company I would recommend doing business with again. I would certainly not be comfortable on behalf of the DAO to have another contract with that company. And we haven't been able to identify anything that meets those requirements, knowing that, I mean, a good chunk of almost a third of that money came from Sonoma Clean Power, who will, of course, not sign on to have a gas trolley running through. They would not sponsor that. So
They sponsor a conversion though.
We need to figure out how to get some more information around a conversion. Because I think possibly that did come up at one point, but we just don't know what that, you know, we got some numbers that were very different from each other. So the funding becomes a real issue, right? That, I mean, the DAO has to raise whatever is needed to operate it. If there's interest in looking at a gas vehicle that will likely be larger, and possibly cutting or changing the hours to kind of seeing what we saw here, we can, I mean, it would not be hard to get an estimate for what that would look like. We are very late in the process at this point. It's the kind of thing we probably should have done back in like November or December. But I'm happy to reach out and to my best friend, the trolley broker, and see if she has anything available and what the costs would be. Most trolley companies will lease directly. They won't also provide an operator. So we would have a secondary contract with a logistics company, similar to what Russian River does, or what Smart does at the airport. So it would be a two-piece program. And I can explore that, but I don't know realistically if that's going to come in. My assumption is that it will probably be more than what we're looking at from last year.
Okay, I don't know about you, but I don't think there would be an appetite to go from electric to gas.
No, it's not.
Both at the policy and public level. So
So a tram and not a trolley would be the next.
can you make the
possible.
tram look cute like the trolley is the
You
question.
can definitely wrap it in some very fun
I
designs.
think that is part of the curb appeal of it, you know?
And Chair, if I may,
Yeah.
there's a important point that you made as well as Cadence. The last mile and not the Luma option not being something that you're interested in. And I'm wondering if this could be a trend that's been set forth by Smart in their marketing scheme. I mean, especially not only here in Santa Rosa, but throughout. Maybe they want to take more of a heavier lift on this project as it really would increase ridership for their program.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely, we're involved in this version and we can reach back out to them and also connect with Transit, who kind of like said, good luck, but we want nothing to do with this appropriately, right? This was not public transport in that way. So there's an option to talk to Smart. There's an option to look into a tram. We truthfully have not looked into tram leases or rentals. We have only looked into the cost to purchase a tram. So we can see what that cost
Did
might
you
be.
work at all with SCTCA? You might want to reach out to James Cameron and this could be a great opportunity for them to do the Councilmember Alvarez's point, the last mile. They're big on the Redwood bike share and stuff like that. So this may be another opportunity for them to partner with us. So I think that might be something to reach out to.
Chair, if I may, staff will work with Cadence and the DAO on maybe what some of these options might look like, and then we'll agendize this in the future to bring it back to you and have that discussion. Does that work?
That'd be great.
That'd be great. Okay, perfect. Rachel, do you mind adding that as a comeback on your list?
One last question, Chair. Feedback from Smart. We know that you did a survey on the ridership, but the sponsors, any feedback that you got back from them, other than if you go gas, we won't participate?
No specific feedback from Smart that would kind of change how it might operate. I mean, the issue is that if you're years ago when, I don't know, remember if it was a city or Smart ran the shuttle to the parking garages from Smart. When Smart first started as a way to have folks park downtown and take the shuttle, that was not well utilized. And obviously that was years ago. I imagine ridership has changed. A lot has certainly happened between, was that 2016, whenever Smart started, and now. But I think when you start running it to meet the need of Smart, you potentially miss out on just some of the local connectivity. Not that they're at odds with each other, just that to achieve both fully, you'd kind of be, it would be a much more significant program, if that makes sense.
All right.
All right.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Back.
Go to 9.1.
Thank you, Executive Director Allenson, for that presentation. Appreciate that, and we'll bring that item back to this committee for discussion in the future. I'm gonna jam through some of these next few items just so that we can continue to stay on time. So for your committees,
Just real quick questions
Yes.
for council.
yes.
Pass. Since they're agendized separately, do we need to pause and take public comment on each one, or can we go through all of item 9 and then come back?
No, we should take public comment on each one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I just know it's a combined presentation, so
Yeah, yeah.
come to a stopping point after each one and then.
Will do. So we're going to talk a little bit about the implementation plan update and economic development strategy. So as you're aware, council adopted and approved the citywide economic development strategy back in April of 2024. The team was reformed with new staff since that time, and we've been busy working to put together what I call the framework so that we can implement that strategy. One of the first things that we did as a team, once we had all the people on the bus, was to develop the principal statement or the vision statement for our team. That is what is up on the screen here. It's also available online for anyone in the public who's interested in seeing it. Our vision as an economic development team mirrors that of council and council's work plan and the economic development strategy. And the goals that are listed there also mirror the same goals. You'll note that our purpose is to administer and implement that plan, and the mission by which we do that is through the economic development implementation plan, which I'm going to go ahead and talk about. I'll also just call out that we worked with Zero to develop a new tagline and some new imagery. The new tagline is "Where Success Takes Root," and you'll note that embedded in the font in the text are actually roots growing from the words, which are intended to illustrate all of that underneath the surface, which makes Santa Rosa strong. So the implementation plan itself is a 40-page plan, which kicked off on January 1st. So we're just a few months into the administration of this plan. This 40-page implementation plan lays out specific action steps and goals toward realizing all of the goals within the economic development strategy. This 40-page plan has been, thankfully, to Rachel's credit, reduced to a one sheet, a summary of the implementation plan, which is on the screen here. We're working to get that translated also into Spanish, and then we'll have the one sheet available in English and Spanish online. We work to also align and create individual work plans for all of the team members. The work plans align with and support the implementation plan. That is now complete. So a lot of the first few months has been putting together the framework and these plans into place and then getting them adopted and approved. If you think of the economic development strategy as the blueprint for how to move forward economic prosperity in Santa Rosa, the implementation plan is the foundation for that, and the individual work plans are the footings for that foundation. And we have all of those in place now. The implementation plan will be daylighted when I do a staff briefing to the full council on some of the activities that we've been working on as an economic development team. But both the implementation plan and the one-page sheet will be available online. That concludes the implementation plan portion of new business.
Any questions?
No, sir.
No questions, public comment, seeing none. No comments, we can move on to 9.2.
Okay, perfect. And I do have copies of the one sheet on the back table as well, Chair and Vice Mayor, if you're interested. We're going to move on to number 9.2, business attraction, retention, and expansion updates. I can make you aware that staff is presently talking with a few outside companies who have expressed interest in Santa Rosa. A couple of those companies have already had some preliminary discussions with our planning team. This is very preliminary. There's nothing to report yet, but I did want to just convey that there is interest in doing business in Santa Rosa, and we are working with these companies and these organizations. To that end, looking at information which is received from our consultant, last year, Santa Rosa received over 800 new business license applications for businesses who are looking to do business in Santa Rosa. Those are new, not renewed licenses. Of interest, interesting to note, almost half, 360 of those applications were for home occupation-based businesses, which gives us a little bit of an idea as to where the market's trending. We're also, in terms of business attraction and recruitment, currently routing a contract with Retail Strategies. Retail Strategies is a professional consultant in this arena who helps specifically public agencies and communities attract and recruit businesses into their markets. They will perform, once the contract is executed, a gap analysis and a leakage study to help us identify what industry types are missing from the market. They'll help us to put together a recruitment strategy, and then we can take that recruitment strategy to trade shows or out into conversations, or if we're meeting with corporations, and have the labor profiles and the consumer profiles that they're looking for as they're making decisions to move into markets. So we're going to continue to work on that. There will be more information coming to council, full council soon, on some of the new development opportunities. We're looking, that will probably happen sometime in April. That concludes my new business update.
All right, any questions?
Of those 800 businesses that applied, how many were successful? Are there any data that is available?
I don't know the answer to that question,
I didn't expect that. It's very,
but that is data we're going to start collecting. And later in the presentation, I'm going to get to KPIs and we'll talk about some of that data.
and along with that data, is it possible to also implement a survey for those that might have not been able successful in their attempt to obtain a business license, and what we as a city could do best?
Absolutely. We've been talking to staff about doing essentially exit interviews. You know, good companies, good organizations, they interview employees when they leave to understand why. We're going to be doing the same thing with businesses in our business community.
And one of your first comments was that we've made contacts, and there are businesses that have interest in the city of Santa Rosa. In those conversations, is there anything that stood out where we need to improve something to attract even more businesses? Is there anything that you heard from those potential partners?
Generally, market conditions will drive new business activity, and then it's up to the city to alleviate and streamline processes. So most of the feedback that we receive is not unique to Santa Rosa. It's very similar in any city across California, which is, how do we make this process faster? How do we make it more convenient? How do we go from signing a lease on this building to starting construction as soon as possible? And that's in part why we've created our new business concierge program. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later in the
And I know that's always been an issue for all businesses, new businesses, but I'm happy to say that Santa Rosa really is moving in the right direction when it comes to that. So thank you.
Yeah.
If I may, Vice Mayor,
Yes, sir.
to a more specific answer to your question, we are seeing that it's a policy decision, but the gas station ban in some cases seems to be a barrier to new business or expanding business. So that's just food for thought for you all as policymakers.
Could you expand on that, not specifically, but like, if we look behind that?
Well, if there is a business that generally operates a gas station in conjunction with retail, we are not an attractive option for them because they can't implement gas station operations in addition to their retail.
Got it.
And so
Like
there
Buc-ee's?
there is a scenario where some of your big box stores that may also operate a gas station, they may look to other cities, neighboring cities, where they have the option to do both, whereas here they would only have the retail option. And so, to answer your question, right, are there barriers that we're seeing here in Santa Rosa? One of them potentially could be the gas station ban. And again, that as policymakers, you all decide, is the gas station ban right for Santa Rosa, or is it not? But it does have implications on the business side, specifically the tax revenue side.
Thank you.
That was all my questions.
All right. Yeah, I don't have any further questions on that.
Okay. Do you want to move to public comment then?
Public comment? None, moving on.
Is there anyone online? watching?
We don't pay public comment online.
Okay, then just do them all. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. We're going to move on to entrepreneurship and small business updates. I mentioned earlier that we're working on a few projects, including the Business Concierge Program. The Business Concierge Program is a new initiative which provides two branches of service to the business community. One is essentially a liaising support for businesses as they seek to navigate the licensing process, permitting, planning, building engineering, et cetera, and being an internal advocate, if you will, or a bridge to help bridge some of the communication between our planning teams and our planners and those businesses as they're trying to, or those businesses, contractors, consultants, architects, as they're trying to work through the process. The other side of the Business Concierge Program, in addition to that internal support, would be direct business support, technical assistance, providing businesses with opportunities for education so that their businesses can be more successful, really acting as a convener to help connect businesses with funding opportunities, to help connect businesses with grant opportunities, with technical assistance opportunities, et cetera. And this entire Business Concierge Program, which again, we're going to convert to Spanish, make it available online, will be administered by an individual staff person with the title of the Small Business Ombudsman. Presently, that is Raphael. And so Raphael's really been diving into this and already is working with, I alluded earlier that there's some businesses who've expressed interest in Santa Rosa. He's already working with them to understand what that planning, permitting, licensing process looks like, as well as already working the concierge part of that program, which is providing existing businesses with support in terms of assistance or guidance that they need in order to be successful. And this concierge program falls directly in line with the strategies in the strat plan and also in the implementation plan. Part of the business concierge program also entails working with and providing support to our traditionally underserved or disadvantaged business populations. And so to that end, our team held its first, and we will continue to hold, Rise and Thrive Business Breakfast, where we meet with business owners, industry leaders, and business support agencies who represent disadvantaged or traditionally underserved business populations. Our first one went really well, and I'm going to turn it over for a 5-minute update so we can continue to move quickly to Raphael, who helped to lead that initiative, and then also Rachel, who was there and supported that initiative. So Raphael, do you mind giving us an update on how that Rise and Thrive breakfast?
Yeah, no, thank you, Scott. Good morning, Chair Krepke, Vice Mayor Alvarez. Pleasure to see you. Yeah, so as Scott was saying, as we continue to develop the online and physical one-stop shop to support businesses as part of our strategic plan rollout, we recently held that meeting last month. It went really well, and we met with partners that provide support to small businesses as well as entrepreneurs representing the BIPOC community. So some of those organizations included, the list is not very long, but I'm just going to go ahead and name the organizations that were there. Sonoma County Hispanic Chamber, North Bay Black Chamber of Commerce, the Small Business Development Center, or SBDC. We had a representative from SCORE, Los 100, Professionals with Pride Chamber of Commerce, the Latin Hub, the Asian American Pacific Islander Coalition of the North Bay, the Career Technical Education Organization, and we did extend invites to NAACP as well as the JobLink and the Santa Rosa Junior College. We plan to see them at the next meeting. But during the meeting, we also engaged in a very small and quick exercise regarding some of the barriers and challenges that we currently have with our BIPOC community. So we got some excellent feedback as an outcome of that exercise. And we definitely want to continue to expand and implement those ideas to help and remove barriers, build pathways, and how to effectively collect the data. So like I said, we're planning on having a follow-up meeting in May. So we're very excited and looking forward to continuing that partnership. And as Scott mentioned, yeah, we came up with that Rise and Thrive Business Partners name, which we'll be presenting in May. And I don't know, Rachel, if you want to share anything else.
I can just touch on good morning, a couple of our overall themes that we kind of saw from our breakfast, if you're okay with that, Rafael.
Sure.
And I'll keep it kind of brief. We saw from our conversations with the partners that they wanted to ensure that the city had a key point of contact for these business communities to go to and trust. So that's where this one-stop shop will be a huge asset, and Rafael in that role as well. And streamlining our trainings, workshops, and resources to ensure that duplicative information is not being provided to the business community. Ensuring that information is provided in multiple languages, in print, and our trainings and workshops are offered in person, and that we're continuing to work closely with our business partners for outreach and connection. So we kind of brought all of these themes together, and we'll continue the conversations with business partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Rafael and Rachel. Back to you, Chair.
Any questions?
I can think of no one better for the position than yourself, Rafael. My concern is, do you have the resources that you need to be effective? Because I know that for the underserved community that I serve, if they don't see results, they will simply say that the system does not work. And then you face an uphill battle. So for me as a council member, it's about making sure that you have the resources that you need to be effective. So the question to you is, do you feel that you have the resources to be effective?
Well, to answer that, I feel very supported, and also I think this is a great step in the right direction, working with these partners and definitely working together as a community to address those concerns and issues. And just like Rachel pointed out, the overarching themes are definitely some of the ones that we're going to be working on with the help of these organizations, these partners, as well as our mighty team.
Perfect. And Scott, I would direct the question to you, sir, is how can we implement technology to help Rafa's efforts? And the one things that come to mind is, for example, just yesterday, I believe I reached out to you with tamales oaxaqueños, which is a little cart that serves tamales in front of a gas station. But nonetheless, though, is there, I'm just thinking how technology is really advancing our service. Is there a way to one day see a service where it sends a text to this person with the contact number that says, hey, your permit has now been processed, or it's in process, or what stage it's at?
Yeah, those are really good ideas, Vice Mayor. And I had a conversation with our Director of IT talking about some of the different software capabilities that exist within the city so that we can provide those types of services to businesses. We're also in pre-development stages of developing our virtual online one-stop shop portal, which is going to be an online experience for businesses to help them navigate all the requirements for doing business in Santa Rosa, but also providing them with support and tools and other information so that they can be successful. We've looked at the implementation of AI. We've looked at, a lot of things, and I'll touch on it a little bit later in the agenda, but I think you'll see some exciting things coming forward for helping the business community.
Well, I'm happy the crazy idea of mine is something that you're already working on. So I do
Okay,
appreciate
great.
Well, and if I can through the chair.
Yes.
Because I believe, Vice Mayor, that's an important question, and very specific response to your question is through our Excella permitting process, we're actually evolving that to the next phase. That process will run through this year and into next. And one of the main features that we're trying to implement is the customer service sort of outside interaction with that platform. An important piece is when somebody submits an application that they need transparency in the process. And that transparency is how long is it taking? And if we say 3 weeks and it goes 4 weeks, that they get notified that these are the reasons why. It could be more permit volume. It could be staff vacancies. There's reasons why it shifts. But it really is more automatic noticing where we can leverage cell phones, which are the main level of communication, and people can interact more fluidly with their permit instead of calling someone or having to come into the office. So that's really one of the pieces that the department's trying to embrace is we have some of those technological tools. We just have to work our process around them so we can implement them. But we'll see much more of that over this year and into next.
And it's greatly appreciated.
My question is, when we talk about underrepresented businesses, how do we define that?
A lot of that comes from federal definitions from the SBA. Our BIPOC community and BIPOC businesses are actually listed specifically in the Economic Development Strategic Plan. So we're leaning into what has already been identified by council in their work plans or in the Economic Development Strategy, or what Small Business Administration or other state agencies use to define what an underserved or underrepresented business typically means.
Would veteran and disabled veteran-owned businesses be one of those?
Absolutely. Yeah, veteran, women-owned, et cetera.
Are we making any efforts to connect with our veteran-owned businesses in our community?
We've had some conversations about what a program like that could look like, but certainly that would be part of the Rise and Thrive breakfast that we're doing. Whether they're women, it's a women-owned business, veteran-owned business, if it's a BIPOC-owned business, that's what that initiative is all aimed at.
Okay, yeah, and the only reason I ask is because it wasn't called out specifically, but like I would like to see, I think the Rise and Thrive is a great effort and
Yeah.
we're doing great things. I would like to see, veteran-owned businesses incorporated into
Yeah,
that as much as
Absolutely,
possible.
absolutely. Yeah, Raphael, write that down as a comeback and we'll make
Yeah.
sure.
Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you. Public comment? Seeing none, we will move on.
You can do them all. It's just.
All right, cool. We'll do it at the end then.
All right, wonderful. So that concludes my update on entrepreneurship. We're going to move on to economic vibrancy and resiliency update. We're going to start with just a couple of comments about events, and then I'm going to turn it over to Meredith for an arts report out. So with regards to events, our staff continues to work very diligently to continue to permit and approve events for Courthouse Square and through other areas in our downtown. I'm sure you've seen a number of events that have been held in the Courthouse Square and downtown area, also at Railroad Square, especially over the holiday period. We are working as a team to understand how we can continue to support all of the existing events, but also focus on quality events versus not necessarily just doing a quantity of events. That doesn't mean we're capping events at any certain number, but we are focused on what these events are bringing in terms of to the community and how they're filling the needs of the community and what community members are looking for in terms of events. So quality versus quantity, understanding what a signature event is. We're having conversations with the chamber and other partners about developing some quantifiers and some definitions around what exactly is a signature event to Santa Rosa? What does that mean for Santa Rosa? And are there any differences in how a signature event might be supported versus another event? Those are still discussions that are being had. We're continuing to wrap up for some of the big city-hosted events like Live at Juilliard this summer. It's not too early to plan, and we have been planning, working on that. Looking forward to what's going to happen for that event this year. Having a lot of conversations internally as a team and with other partner agencies like Parks and Rec about stages for events and what that can look like. They no longer have their mobile stage, and any event organizer who does an event in the downtown has to rent a stage at a cost of about $3,000 to that event organizer. Even we as a city for city hosted events rent stages. So we're just trying to understand if there's a better way to do that. We are also, and I will talk about it later in the agenda, looking at programming what we call Second Sundays around a farmer's market, which is coming to the downtown. We have a permit in for a new recurring Sunday farmer's market, Courthouse Square, and I'll talk a little bit about that more later. We're also working very closely with the chamber presently on a modification to one of the agreements. We have a couple of agreements with the Santa Rosa Metro Chamber. One of those agreements is for event management in the Courthouse Square. We've come to find in conversations with the chamber, it's not really necessarily their forte or their focus. So we're looking at how we can move event management and organization back to the city so that the chamber can focus on business support and business attraction in the downtown. Those are the only updates I have concerning events. Do you have any questions or comments before we move on to the art report out?
More parties.
More parties.
Quality. Or
yeah,
Quantity, I mean.
I go for the quantity.
We can still have quality of quantity.
Quantity.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I would say, yeah, to somewhat echo those comments. When we talk about activation of the downtown with events and stuff like that, that helps our businesses and
Yeah.
that also helps, you know, there's strains that go out into our other efforts that aren't agendized. We can't talk about them, but
Yeah.
you know, that it helps when there's more people downtown. That helps with a variety of other things, especially things that we have on the docket and planned. So activation of Courthouse Square, it would be huge, whether it's events or, you know, whatever improvements we can put in there.
Yeah, we're looking at a lot of creative ways to use underutilized public space downtown. I mean, we've looked at everything from, you know, can we do events in our parking garages? Can we do, we're looking at a lot of things. There are a lot of considerations there that we have to explore. But staff's being very creative in working with the business community and other partner agencies on what we can do to activate public spaces with activity.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we're holding public comment now just until the very end. All right, we're gonna move on to arts and culture update, and I'm gonna turn it over to Meredith. Meredith, I can work your slides or we can switch places, whatever you
Switch
want.
it on my glasses, so I won't be able to read them. I won't be able to read this.
And there you go.
It's a good segue with activating public spaces. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, maybe now. Meredith Knudsen, I'll be presenting Arts and Culture Program update today. I believe the last time we met, it may have been in November, maybe December. And at that time, we were in the process of opening a lot of calls for art. So we've had a lot of opportunities recently for local and US-based artists for arts. Sunday, we had the reception for the National Arts Program. Thank you, Vice Mayor Alvarez, for tackling that speech with me. I think we made a good dream team for that, so thanks. The National Arts Program was open to all City of Santa Rosa residents and employees to participate. We had 152 people participate this year. Ages ranged from 12 and under to professional. And being my first time doing this, I just thought it was awesome to see the creativity that's in our community. And on Sunday, we were able to connect with a lot of different artists and get feedback on our program and moving forward. This April, you will see Courthouse Square activated with 3 sculptures and an augmented reality art exhibit. So that's in partnership with the city's Earth Day event. Artwork will be installed by April 1st and will be de-installed by beginning of May. And that was open to California-based artists. We had, I believe, about 35 applicants for that one. So we're really excited to start this temporary placemaking art to gauge the community response. We'll be doing some marketing around that as well to get people into downtown Santa Rosa. April, we don't have too many events in Courthouse Square, so it's a great time to start activating that space to get people downtown. The Big Belly Trash Can Art Project, we have 10 artists that are participating in that. The Big Belly Trash Cans will be in Roseland, and we opened up a call for Sonoma-based artists of all ages and all skill levels. And we got in, I believe it was about 50-something applications. It was really neat to go through. I facilitated the selection panel, I'm not on it, but they had a really hard choice. So they chose 10 artists. Only one of them is a full wrap by a local artist. There's some kids, some school teachers, Windsor High School, Santa Rosa Art Quest. So it's just a really great combination, and some Roseland artists as well. The Colgan Creek mural, that's in partnership with a grant at the Colgan Creek Park Restoration Project. And that's open to US-based artists. And they must work or be a local Native American tribe member. So if they're not a local artist, they've got to work with a Native American tribe member. We received 17 applications across the US, and there are some really great applications. So we're picking the final 3 on Monday, the selection panel. Then they'll be putting together a request for proposals. The Brookwood Community Mural over at the police station was open to Sonoma County mural artists, and they must work with local youth. And we have 2 people completing the RFP for that currently, and that's due in about 6 weeks. That's a really exciting project as well. So a lot of opportunities for our community. This Thursday, we have the Santa Rosa Public Art Walk opening, which is a temporary art walk, which the goal is to connect, as we were talking about, downtown and Railroad Square. And I've already spoke with them all. I'll be speaking with Railroad Square and Cadence as well on the different spots to activate
this. It will be artwork that's up for 2 years. It's open to US-based artists, and we're hoping to select up to 10 artists to show. Each artist receives a stipend of $5,000 to show for the 2 years. The theme of this is urban renewal. So that theme is sort of a playfulness, innovation, artwork that's imaginative, something that you turn the corner and you're like, wow, I didn't expect to see that there, like a lighted bench or something kinetic. Artwork that's sustainable. So we also just want to work with all of our climate initiatives as well as how are we showcasing the arts education to our community and what are they learning behind these pieces? Being that this artwork will be up for 2 years, there's going to be a really great opportunity to work with the local schools and teachers to get people downtown and do marketing initiatives around this as well. And then also, of course, all of this artwork has to be durable for those 2 years. So we'll be looking closely at these pieces to make sure there's, they're structurally safe, et cetera. For that. We put together a map a while back, scouting downtown on different locations. So not all of these are available, but as we start looking at cleaning up downtown, we were able to get those payphones removed, which was great. Those are opening up spots for temporary public art. So as we look at connecting downtown, I've started scouting locations that maybe not for this show, but maybe for a future show, we can open up those for a really cool art walk. Next, we've been working on an online public art map. We've currently mapped all of our permanent art locations, and currently hopefully hiring an intern to help me finish this project. It's been a while, but this is going to be really exciting for us. Because we have such a wonderful art collection. We have 82 pieces. Some have had retrospective at SF MoMA. We have Blessing Hancock's in Courthouse Square. So having this available for the community to go online and scan a QR code at that site and read about that art will be really great. So we're working on completing this. It's going to position us as an arts destination. Again, we have 82 pieces of really wonderful artwork that I just don't think is really highlighted of what we have. And also on the back end, we're going to be able to internally track maintenance needs, which will be really great for our team to see what needs to be done and track that. So that's up and coming, which is really exciting. We've been doing a lot of progress on our website. So if you haven't checked it out, you can go to the arts website and see how people can get involved. One is our public art proposal form. So before, there wasn't a way for the community to reach out to us if they have an idea about art. And it also wasn't really a fair process because maybe they know someone that they could email. So now it's all online. So if someone wants to propose an idea for public art, permanent or temporary, they go online and then they complete the form. And then we go from there with different approvals, et cetera. This is also available in 19 languages, which is really great for accessibility. And it also shows transparency to the public on how to apply for art, which I think is really, really important that everyone has that opportunity. The other opportunity we're starting to promote is to serve on an arts selection panel. So for instance, the National Arts Program, we had 2 judges, but I'm sure a lot of people there on Sunday would love to participate as a judge. So now you can go on our website and any community member can put in their application to be in the pot that we could pull from to serve on a selection panel. And that also ensures that I'm getting diverse voices that are heard through our arts program. Starting summer 2025, we'll be starting an arts roundtable. So part of our strategic plan was to put together a non-governmental body to get feedback on our program and identify our community needs. So we'll be starting that most likely going in each district quarterly, and that will be open to the community. There'll be somewhat of an agenda, but also I want to ensure that they have time to communicate their feedback on their program and also give me ideas of what the community would want. So I'm really excited to start that up too. Lastly, as Scott was talking about events, we have our 2 event support programs. The SRTBIA applications are closing end of this month. We did run some online ads for that, which were targeted directly to event managers, organizers, and planners. And those were in San Jose, Sacramento, San Francisco, Seattle, and Long Beach. Last year, we ran those ads, and we received about 65% of the applicants were all brand new applicants. And I believe about half of those we gave funding to. So this is a great opportunity for us to get the Santa Rosa brand in front of people that may be thinking of coming here, thinking of hosting their event, thinking of living and working here. In front of them. And then currently those ads, we've had a 42,000 reach, over 20,000 views, and 353 clicks on the link. And we've spent $122 on that. So I think that's a really good return on investment of even getting in front of that 40,000 people of our brand is fairly good. Our community promotions opens on April 1st, and that's more geared towards the community events, so it doesn't have to put heads in beds. And that will close on May 15th, and they'll be awarded in mid-June. And so if you're not, follow us on Santa Rosa Arts and Culture, because we post all these updates there. We'll be running ads as well for the marketing of the Earthbound show and the Art Walk. I think that's it.
Any questions? Good job. I don't have any either.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And Chair, with regards to art, I don't know if Meredith covered it while I ran to the restroom, but we did the National Arts Program event just this last weekend. And I just want to thank Meredith for all of her work on that. Rachel was there and supported, the other staff supported in advance of it, went really well. I want to thank the Vice Mayor for being there and shaking hands and handing out awards. So it was really.
It was great.
Yeah. It was one of those times where you feel really rewarded to work in the public sector and support the communities. So we're going to go ahead.
Chair, if I may make a comment, if it's not too late.
Go for it.
The importance of, we're having a conversation about inviting businesses to Santa Rosa, and how important it is that this is actually one of the aspects that a selling point of why they should be coming to Santa Rosa. It's really our support of beautifying the human beautification of the Santa Rosa Renaissance. We have the geographic beauty, but here we are trying to beautify our streets with different art pieces, just as a point of selling.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you, sir.
No problem.
We're going to get a little bit into metrics and indicators. And first, I want to start out by talking about what we're going to be working toward with development of the one-stop shop. There's some good examples of economic dashboards that exist in other communities. This economic dashboard, which is visualized here on the presentation, is Napa's dashboard. Other communities have similar tools by which to educate the public and inform them on the condition and status of the economy in their local communities, but also to report out on the effectiveness and the impact of the economic development teams in those communities and their programs. And that's something that we are going to be working toward as a team in developing those in regards to not just tracking our own deliverables for the economic development implementation plan, and I kind of jumped ahead on the slide here, but also just tracking what's happening in Santa Rosa from workforce perspective, labor perspective, et cetera. Part of Rachel's new role is tracking some of our own initiatives for us and tracking those milestones and how we're doing on meeting the goals and active actions laid out in the Economic Development Strategic Plan. And you'll see that reflected in the future in the dashboard in terms of number of businesses we're working with. I mentioned earlier some new business starts. We'll have some of that data available online as well, and also in future report outs to this committee. We're going to get a little bit into just 2024 in review, since we weren't able to go over this in January. Ending 2024, Santa Rosa's unemployment rate stood at 4.3%. This is higher than the national average at the time, which was 3.9%, but lower than the California state average, which was 5.4%. The most significant job growth that we were able to see from reports that came from EDD, California Employment Development Division, were in education and health services, financial activities, and government. There were some steep declines recorded in the tech sector and manufacturing in Santa Rosa. Pictured above here, what you see on the screen here are changes to salaries, average salaries within Santa Rosa. This is primarily as a result of the minimum wage increase. Our office worked with the Department of Finance to determine the new minimum wage for 2025. That amount moving forward is $17.87 per hour. And then some of these average wages bump accordingly. You can see some of the minimum wages and other bottom tier wages reflected in this slide. Other metrics in terms of labor metrics for 2024, average hourly wage across all industries. This is the average hourly, the median wage for all industries in the metro area, rose to just over $33.60 an hour. Notably, consumer spending also saw increases across healthcare, food, transportation, housing, and this is illustrated in a rise in goods and services for these expenditures, which recorded at the end of 2024 at approximately 14%, which underscores why we're seeing some dynamic labor wage growth in some of these markets. Looking ahead in terms of, I think I have your art slides here. Let me move these over. Let me share those back with you, Meredith. I grabbed some of your art slides. Looking ahead in terms of GDP, Sonoma County is expected to, and you can see per this graph, there's anticipation of GDP growth in 2025. One key indicator that our office has looked at, which attributes to this trend, is a 2.8% ongoing increase in growth on average since 2020. This signals a recovery of expansion in the market since COVID-19. Again, I know we've experienced some inflationary activity over the last few months, but this is the close of 2024. At the end of 2024, most economic indicators as far as unemployment, which continued to decline steadily, and also GDP continued to reflect what EDD, the California Employment Development Department, projected as being a tightening labor market throughout 2025. However, with that tightening labor market, regional GDP, according to the state and also according to the Bureau of Economic Analysis, which is a federal agency, has continued to grow, albeit slowly, 1% to 2% over the next 5 years. I mentioned earlier a little bit about project outcomes and deliverables. And already talked about that. Want to talk a little bit about market comparisons. So ending in 2024, and this graph is a little hard to see here, but reflected here are the unemployment rates ending for the year for the different surrounding communities. You can see Mendo, Lake, Napa, Contra Costa, Alameda had higher unemployment rates than Sonoma County, which bodes well for us. The comparison to other cities, that's a county by county comparison there. Compared to other cities, you can see how we stack up against Rohnert Park, Petaluma, and then what the federal and state and county-wide unemployment rates look like for Santa Rosa ending 2024. There are some trends that we're monitoring as a team in terms of we're tracking what's happening to median incomes for families in Santa Rosa. This is very important for us as a team as we understand consumer activities, how they're being impacted by inflationary trends and or wage growth, and what types of restrictions there may be on goods and or services that they're seeking in Santa Rosa. That will tie back to the business attraction recruitment efforts as we look at what types of goods and services we need to attract to the market and ensure that we continue to have a balance of those goods and services in respect to both inflation and wage growth. These are some fun rankings that I thought would be interesting to put up on a slide for the committee and for anyone in the public who's interested. So Niche is a online platform that's well known in amongst colleges and universities, and it helps students to understand communities where they may be considering relocation to. As they look for places to live, as they're making decisions with regards to what college or university to attend. And so you can see here that Niche, which is driven by student feedback, rated Santa Rosa as 54th out of 229 cities for outdoor activities in America. Ranked it as 60 out of 229 major markets for healthiest cities in America, and ranked it as number 60 for overall healthiest places to live in America. And so this is, again, is coming directly from how students are ranking the community. And you can see that we're definitely being ranked by this particular consumer market, at least above average. Moving into other regional indicators. Again, I mentioned earlier that we're looking at dashboards. There will be an economic development dashboard that will be coming soon as part of the one-stop shop program and that virtual online portal that we're working on developing or in pre-development for right now. We're looking at not just what other cities are doing, but also, by way of example, state agencies, California OSBA, which is the Office of the Small Business Advocate, for example. They publicly list on their website how many businesses they're in contact with, how many funding opportunities they've connected businesses to, et cetera. So we'll be looking at providing all of that data online as well. And I know talking data and KPIs is a little stale, but if you bear with me, we're almost through. So just a little bit about vacancy rates and where commercial real estate is trending in the market. The retail submarket overall at the end of the year had a vacancy of 5.6%. There was a net absorption, meaning the difference in net absorption is the difference in square footage that was leased versus what's on the market, of almost 200,000 square feet. Santa Rosa's vacancy rate of 5.6% compares to a submarket average of about 4% in the greater market area. So we are trending a little bit higher on vacancy rates for retail. Similarly, moving from retail sector to office, the office submarket rate was higher than retail. I think that's no surprise. We've seen some of the vacant office buildings downtown. Santa Rosa's vacancy rate ending 2024 for the office submarket was almost 7%. This is, although in comparison to other comparable markets, not as stark as the retail comparison, because all markets are struggling right now in terms of having a lot of office vacancy in their markets. So you have a lot of vacant office buildings, especially with trends for remote work and teleworking still very active in communities. So we're continuing to monitor this and understand what the vacancy trends are so that we can continue to work with other organizations like the Chamber, local area brokers, to understand what we can do to help activate these spaces. Part of that will fall under our vacant reactivation program, which is an initiative of the pop-up program, and I'm going to get to that here in just a couple minutes. And then we'll wrap it up with the industrial space submarket report. Again, you can see vacancy rates trending upward. The end of year vacancy rate for industrial in Santa Rosa was 7.5%, compared with a regional market vacancy of just over 5%. So retail and industrial were trending high and compared to other markets, nearby markets, and with office, we're on track with how other markets are performing. Still seeing a lot of growth in vacancy though, overall. So any questions on KPIs and data and metrics in general?
Not on the data and metrics, but I would be interested to see trends going forward from across the nation or like size communities about office conversion. I don't think that return to office is going to be as
Right.
popular in the long term as some people think it might be.
Right.
So I don't think office vacancy is going to go down. But I think office conversion, getting some numbers on that and the popularity of that would be interesting to see what we can do, what we might be able to do here. And then one of my harebrained thoughts, is there any way for us to track the impact on tariffs to local businesses? Steel and aluminum, autos, stuff like that to our local businesses, how that gets impacted. Is there any way to track that or to get any feedback on that over the next couple of months?
Yeah, potentially through supply chain monitoring. We could track that. We could look at that.
The reason why I ask is if businesses slow, if businesses go under, I'd like to be able to see if that has been an impact.
Mhm.
I mean, there's an article in the paper yesterday about a brewery who's, they get aluminum from Canada and they're terrified of what might come over the next few years because they don't know what's gonna, and that was 25%. And I woke up this morning and now it's 50%. So,
Yeah.
I'd like to see how that's impacting us locally, if possible.
Yeah, we can come back with further analysis on just how, because there are a lot of dynamic shifts and changes happening in Washington right now. I don't think it's a matter of what side of the aisle you're on. It's just changes are happening. We should monitor them. So we can bring those impacts back and we can look at how supply chain is being impacted by that and then how that's impacting us locally. I know that data is hard and we've had this conversation in the past. We can come and just dump data on you, but what do you want to know of that data? Like I can just go over unemployment numbers, or would you rather us talk about workforce initiatives and what's happening around workforce initiatives? Same with office and retail industrial vacancy. We can just give you the vacancy numbers, but if you're interested in more specificity around, well, tell me about programming around backfilling office vacancy, we can do that as well. So we'll come back with some programming trends for backfilling vacancy. Jack, do you mind making a little note of that? And then also on federal administration impacts on local businesses, we can come back with that.
Yeah. I mean, straight statistics are great just for informational purposes, but to your point, like what are we doing to address that or how is that impacting us?
Right.
Using that as a data point in that greater conversation, I think would be more effective for us to be able to make decisions on policy or initiatives.
We can also, and it's up to you, rather than burning 15 minutes or 20 minutes on KPIs, we can just bring it as a report attached to the agenda. And then if you review it in advance, you have questions, or you have specific things you want us to address, we can do that as well.
Just having them, I'll ask you, I think just having them, when we come back with updates on the strategic plan, having those things kind of worked in.
Yeah.
Because I'm assuming the KPIs are what we're going to use to track the strategic plan's effectiveness or one of the methods.
Yep.
Yeah, having those in there would be useful.
Yeah, and that will be the piece that Rachel will be working on. In fact, we've met with IT and we're now adding that one page of the implementation plan, which I showed you, which supports the strat plan. We're adding all of that into Microsoft Planner, which we're now using as a tool that we can pull reports from as to progress on all of our initiatives. And then we can bring back, and I think Rachel will have that ready by the next ActDev subcommittee meeting, don't you think? We'll be able to pull reports like, hey, we're on all these initiatives, we're 60%, 70%, we can start trending all of that out for you.
Yeah, I'll defer you. I don't think I need to see it as a regular item, but whenever you come back with updates on the strategic plan, have that in there.
Okay, perfect. And if there are other economic indicators that you want us to bring to you, we can. Just the wrap-up summary, since that was all just a 2024 end of year, the wrap-up summary is that the end of 2024, we did see vacancy rates for across all sector types, retail, office, and industrial increase. So we saw more vacancy at the end of the year. Where we're an outlier is in retail and industrial. We're outpacing the other communities around us, if you will, in terms of how much vacancy we have there. Office, we're right on line with what's happening in other communities. We are seeing wage growth. We're seeing wages go up. And we're seeing in Santa Rosa much more stabilized job and unemployment numbers than we're seeing in other areas. Now, since then, there's been some inflationary activity, which isn't reflected in these numbers, but we can come back and bring that to you when we come again next month in April. So, yeah.
Great.
And now we're going to move on to special project updates. So staff has been working on a number of special projects as directed by and received guidance from council. One of them is the pop-up program. Pictured here is a very unique application and use of a shipping container in another community, which has been positioned in the public right-of-way and purposed for a pop-up merchant. These containers could be used for not just merchanting or retail activities, but you could do pop-up art, pop-up theater, etc. We're having conversations with property owners and brokers and other partner agencies about creative solutions like this, whether it's shipping containers or something else that we can implement in order to activate our downtown spaces and our public right-of-way spaces with not just events, but creative uses like this so that we can allow for more sort of impromptu entrepreneurial type activity to happen in the community. We're working with the planning team to identify how this program might fit within the existing temporary use permit allowances. Later, I've got an update with regards to, or I'll turn it over to Gabe for an update on director level use permits. But we're looking at how to connect this program with that initiative. It would operate sort of similar, if you will, to like the Parklet program. And we've looked very heavily at the Parklet program and those activities that occurred during the pandemic. And working closely with our engineering and building team on what would be allowable. This is just one idea. In addition to activating underutilized spaces, we're also looking at tools and methods by which to encourage landlords and building owners to activate their vacant spaces. We're somewhat limited as a public agency. You know, there are already free to building owners programs and software applications online to help them lease and market space. So we're looking at what are some creative solutions that the city can offer, whether it's maybe rent guarantees or recovery funds available for different types of pop-up activities that might occur in these spaces. Those are all things that we're discussing presently with council just to see what our options are. And the development of the pop-up program manual is currently underway. I've had many conversations with Parks and Rec as well, because there's a real crossover there between some of the things that Parks and Rec are doing and what we might do under the pop-up program. We've also talked with Caltrans about how we might be able to do pop-up type activities under the 101. And that goes back to creating interconnectivity between Railroad Square and Courthouse Square. Any questions on the pop-up program? Okay. Pedestrianization, we've been looking at pedestrianization. Again, this is a special project where we've received guidance or direction from City Council to get more information on. The team has been, in fact, by the way, this is Burlington, Vermont, which is pictured above. We've talked with other California communities who've undergone pedestrianization, which is closure of public streets for outdoor activity. Grass Valley, California is one that we've talked to. We actually talked with one of their council members, their vice mayor, about a recent pedestrianization effort there to understand how that effort, what the impacts of it were and how the businesses coped with that and how the businesses are performing today. We've been working with other communities where pedestrianization has occurred to distribute surveys so that we can understand how those businesses responded to pedestrianization and whether or not those efforts yielded in a positive outcome for businesses. We've also just released a survey to the community, and you may have seen the memo from the city manager on that survey to ask community members how they feel about activation of downtown spaces, public spaces, including and/or pedestrianization or other types of activities in the downtown. We've had a lot of conversations with other business support agencies. I know that Raphael and Rachel have been meeting with the SBDC and the DAO and Railroad Square and other organizations to get their thoughts and feedback as well. This will all ultimately come back to the full council as a study session. And we'll bring all those findings from those surveys with the exterior or external businesses and internal or in-city businesses, consumer surveys, all that data will come back to you. Any questions on pedestrianization?
I think that's great.
Okay. And again, I'm just kind of trying to go through it to be cognizant of time. So if I miss something, a question, let me know. So the farmer's market, I mentioned earlier that we're working on a farmer's market. We have a permit in for a recurring farmer's market, which will occur every Sunday starting in May through September. And this will be a true, actual fresh food, produce focused farmer's market. Unlike a Wednesday night market, which may have a lot more artisans, you'll see actually a lot of farmers at this market. And this is an established operator who has a history of doing these markets. They're reputable. We've seen some of their other market operations. They do a good job. We're also working to program around this market what we call Second Sundays. And Second Sundays will be sort of a quasi-city hosted event that will occur in tandem with the farmers market. And that will be the second Sunday of every month. In addition to the farmers market, we will bring a lot of activity downtown. And Rachel has been doing a really good job on lining up different groups who are really interested in activating around the Second Sundays. Rachel, do you mind maybe just rattling off some of those groups or talking just a little bit? I'll give you 5 minutes on Second Sundays.
Absolutely, no problem. So yes, we'll do Second Sundays, June, July, August, and September. So the market will start in May, which it will already start after the second Sunday in May. So we'll just do those 4 months. A couple of the groups we already have interested and committed. We're working with the library, Children's Museum, our internal police and fire, rec and parks department. So we're working within the city also. North Bay Animal Services, Common Ground Society, the 6th Street Playhouse. So a lot of local nonprofits, a lot of organizations. And then I have another group of organizations that I'm waiting on commitments from. So the goal is kind of to bring families downtown, family-friendly event, have music and activities for kids. And we'll have marketing materials out really soon for that.
And these will be during the day, 11, is it 11 to 2?
It's 10 to 2. So it's the same time as the market. So the market will be 10 to 2 every Sunday, May 18th through the end of September, September 28th. And then these will be the same time. So Second Sundays will be kind of marketed separately, but in conjunction with the farmers market.
And we will continue to work with and allow, if the farmers market wants to program activities or music or other things on the other Sundays, we're certainly going to work with them on that. I know that they're interested in doing that. But Second Sundays will be, the city has ownership over Second Sundays. You'll see Rachel and probably some of our staff out there on those Sundays working some of those programs. So more to come soon. We're working with their team on just some of the logistics around the farmers market, setup, layouts, etc. So, any questions on that?
I was just thinking collaboration, a farmer and a fielder might go to play together.
Yeah.
Music with farmer market, why not?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, and I think this is great. I've been around long enough to remember the old Thursday night market, which was the farmer's market. And that turned into Wednesday night market and the farmer's market went away. So that was always popular. So I'm glad to see it come back. And I think this is a great initiative.
Yeah, we have done a grocery gap analysis, and we know that there is there's unmet market demand in the downtown in terms of fresh grocery. And so we're also hoping that this will actually help sort of backfill what's a little bit of a food desert in our downtown.
Great.
Okay, next initiative, the one-stop shop. So you've probably heard of or seen some of the changes that are happening up in room 6 with in a very economical way, buying IKEA furniture and Costco rugs. We've been able to convert what was essentially a storage room for unused cubicles and workstations into a business lounge. And the purpose and point of the business lounge is to create a place in the community where entrepreneurs, startup businesses, minority-owned businesses, anyone who just needs a little bit more hand-holding. This might be different from, like going to the counter and applying for a permit. This may be needing to sit down with someone and just test it, like just understand conceptually, what thoughts are with regards to the goods or services that they're interested in providing to the community. A place where we can have consultants or technical advisors come and meet with those businesses, a place where our staff can meet with those businesses. We will be working with the existing QLess platform, like QLess, and that will be a way by which businesses will be able to online book appointments. So if someone wants to meet with the small business ombudsman, they want to meet with Raphael, they can book an appointment online. If that individual goes to planning, goes to the ped counter, whoever's at the desk or at the counter that day will be able to notify Raphael that their appointment is there. Raphael can come meet with them in this space, and they can sit down and talk about whatever it is, if it's funding needs, looking over a marketing plan for their business, etc. Also looking to make this a space just available for the community in general. We have our first community meeting in this space tomorrow. There's a group called Audubon Franquette, which is coming, and they just do visioning exercises with the community about what they like to see happen in Santa Rosa. We have also opened up this space in the online calendar as reservable for anyone within the city as well. So city departments, other agencies can reserve this space for meetings, etc. So we're taking what was once an underutilized storage space, if you will, and really turning it into a place that has a higher and better benefit and use for the community. If you haven't had a chance, I would encourage you just to come by, stop by. We have a monitor that is rotating public art, so you can see pictures of our public art collection. We have another monitor where our dashboard, I mentioned the dashboard earlier, will be available. You can come at any time if you want to know in real time what does unemployment look like. You can come and interact with the dashboard, which should be on that monitor. So really creating what communities are calling third spaces, but a third space for businesses and for business advocates. Any questions with regards to that?
Sounds great.
Okay. So I do have some department
Hold on.
reports.
9.7,
Oh, yes, now we're at the.
public comment.
I will just say, as far as the pedestrianization goes, it's really critical that downtown businesses are engaged in the process. The survey were going out last week. A lot of opinions came forward that had already been shared, but are being reiterated. And it's a good opportunity to help businesses feel that they're being listened to. So I would just encourage that to happen. The DAO will be taking a position. I think the DAO will likely be taking a position on it, so we'll be sharing that once that's done.
And Cadence, if you can, what has been your experience with the term pedestrianization? And please be candid.
So the survey itself, do you want me to stop?
No, go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I think there's a lot of concern that the survey is very skewed toward either you don't support pedestrian activity or if you don't support the idea of closing streets, you don't support pedestrians in the downtown. And when you look at the introductory language, it definitely presents as this is a really fantastic idea that should be implemented. And so there's just some concern from the businesses that the presentation of the concept of pedestrianization is not kind of appropriately linked to the reality of road closure.
Thank you. And the reason why I asked is because I'm hearing the same feedback, if not more. And I want to be clear with you all and with staff that the term pedestrianization is too narrow. That what we are talking about is the activation of public spaces. And so as you all are in conversation with community, if you could help us where this is a bigger idea rather than we're just looking at creating bike lanes or safe spaces for people to walk. Yes, that is a component of what we're talking about, but there is a larger scope. And so I've spoken with staff, and I want to say to you all very clearly that when we talk about how we can make our downtown more economically vibrant, and as we look at ideas that may include the activation of public spaces, which may include or may not include a street closure, that we're not solely talking about pedestrianization.
No, and I think that's fair. I think one of the issues with this process was that this was a motion at council phrased as pedestrianization of 4th Street. So that's how it is captured within the minutes, and that's how it's captured within business to come forward. And so that's a more organic way, having this come through economic development would have been preferable so that we can cover those things at a very preliminary level and then move towards what we're doing would have probably been more comforting to the business community and our constituents. But I think that when it's phrased as pedestrianization of 4th Street as a motion, it's voted on and then moves forward, that's how it is. It's captured. And so, but I totally agree with you. It is not, I think that in discussions that I've had with stakeholders, that a ripping the Band-Aid off and just throwing up bollards is a nightmare to them. And it's frankly a nightmare to me. This has to be a concerted effort and a deliberate process to not only activate the public space, but encourage the businesses to participate in that and bring them out of the shadows, so to speak. I don't know what your thoughts are on.
Having interaction with business owners and stakeholders, my question is one of the missing components in that conversation the policy that governs the area? For example, permissible uses as one example.
Possibly, and Gabe has done some great work looking at the state has allowed cities to implement what they call entertainment zones. And that would capture exactly what you're talking about. And so I'll let Gabe speak more about that, but I do think that that's a component of this conversation that shouldn't be avoided.
Yeah, thank you, Dariel. And I think it becomes really there's two sides to this. And as you look at the dynamic nature of our community and the conversations we have on general surveys are very different than the conversations we want to have with the directly impacted business owners. And one of the strategies that we had talked about is if we talk about a closure of 4th Street specifically for vehicular traffic, how would you use that space? Help us envision the programming. And some of the programming, one of the concepts of an entertainment district is really the consumption of alcohol outside of the business. So it allows flexibility where you can create a space of entertainment that's separated from the business, but still allow the business activity to occur because the food and beverage can move outside of that building. So what we had talked about is how do we do it on a limited scale? Is it event-based? How do we test this concept? And really, in all honesty, how do you convince someone that's in the jewelry business to leverage that space outside and help me focus on how we can program this better for you as a business owner so where it benefits you? That's part of the conversation that we're really having too with the businesses, because it is very much that direct benefit. We have to treat that different than we do just with global surveying and just community feedback to understand what would bring people downtown, right? Because that's the interest. But then obviously, if we have a negative impact to the community by doing that, the business community, you remove the things that potentially they're going to. So it's a very dynamic conversation. But I just want to stress that we are touching all bases. We are looking at a lot of activity to bring things downtown to create that buzz. And concepts of closures can be event-based. They can be limited term. They could be around a program. And I think an important point when we talk about events, how do we do events that purely support the businesses downtown? So we're looking at those concepts. What does that really look like? I refer to it often as really, Porch Fest, right? The whole concept of that is you go from residential to residential. How do you do the same thing with businesses? So I just want to stress that is brought up. I completely understand the concerns from the downtown business and the DAO, and we will factor those into the decision-making as we bring a recommendation forward to council. And obviously, as Scott mentioned, there'll be study session opportunities to discuss all this beforehand.
Yeah, if I may, Chair, having been a former entrepreneur and small business owner in my career, we're very, I don't know if I want to say concerned, but very interested in how the businesses feel about this. As Gabe indicated, the survey is not the end all be all. It's one of many tools to collect data, and certainly happy to share with our CRO team who helped develop the survey some of the feedback about how the survey's been perceived. But there's going to be a lot of outreach, more meetings. We're actually waiting to meet with the business community last because we think those are some of the most important voices. And we want to hear what all of the other sort of noise out in the environment is first, and then we can come to the businesses and bring that intel with us. But we will continue to, be very diligent about trying to bring this, when we do bring it to council, the good and the bad. We're already hearing very positive feedback, very negative feedback, and not to come with any sort of an angle, but to come with all of the data, the information, the feedback, so that it can be a true study session. And also encourage, if we can, bring data from other communities who've done these street closures and the pedestrianization. They've already reported to us how these efforts have impacted sales of businesses in those communities. We're happy to bring all of that information as well. I can also just say briefly that we're working very closely with Parks and Rec on understanding one of Santa Rosa's first successful pedestrianization efforts, which is Comstock Mall. Comstock Mall was once a street. And it was closed down and it was activated with as a park, essentially. And so how can we continue to look at Comstock Mall as a example where it was successful, but also maybe where it's failing and where we can do better. So we'll bring all of those things to you in the future.
Would it be prudent to have more than one meeting with the business community? Maybe have one early with the DAO and the chamber, get their feedback, and then come back to them with, here's what we're planning on presenting to council, and here's what we've, the information we've accrued. And, I mean, not that any one stakeholder is more important than the rest, but I mean, we're talking business owners downtown. That's who's going to be most impacted. And, the last thing I want is to have any downtown organization or a set of business owners to say, we weren't consulted until the 11th hour. And while I appreciate you want to get all the information up front, I know I've only been in this game for quote unquote, for 2 years. You're in your 5th year, but you've seen that before, right? Where when people feel like they're left out or they're brought in late in the process, there can be some animosity that grows based on that. And I understand your methodology, but they may not agree with it.
And to your point, from my interactions with those stakeholders, they're very, I won't say adamant, but they have a very good idea of what they expect in order to be successful. And part of those points were brought up. It was the permissible alcohol use. It is the noise allowances within that area. So to your point, I think it would be very prudent to involve the stakeholders very early on in the process, opposed to the latter part.
Yeah, those are great ideas. And we've had, I know Gabe and I have had a very specific conversation with DAO once already. I know Rachel and Raphael have met with Cadence. We're talking with Railroad Square. So they're not being left out of the process. And I would say we're not in the 11th hour, we're in the 3rd hour, even when we do go and sit down and start having these business discussions. So that we can review this data together and understand the data together. And you're right, there's going to be more than one sit down with the businesses, probably multiples. So we'll continue to keep you apprised on how those conversations are going.
All right, appreciate that.
And then we're wrapping up new business. So public comment?
We just did that, I think.
Anything, but no other public comments, so we're good?
Yeah. She made hers, she can't go again.
Okay.
That's the law.
All right. Then we would move on to matters held in committee, Chair. I don't think we have anything held in committee.
Not that I know of.
Department reports, I did want to turn it over to Director Osborne to talk about entertainment zones. He covered that a little bit earlier already. And also to talk a little bit about the director level use permit that is currently underway for exploration and planning.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Just a few points of what the department's working on. I briefly mentioned entertainment districts. That is allowed at the state level. The local jurisdictions can incorporate that. We've had some internal conversations with our police chief about what that would look like. We're working closely with our city attorney's office on how we would incorporate that. So right now we're fact finding. That will be brought to the full council for a modification to the code. That could be done as a permanent entertainment district that just exists, or a limited entertainment district that exists during events or when the city wants to start and stop. So there's some flexibility in that. And generally the concept is certain alcohol types can leave the business. So once again, our hope is that that actually supports those businesses downtown where food trucks and other vendors may be pulling that activity. This is now the opportunity to have that patronage go to those businesses. So that I think it's really important to a lot of the events and the programming that we're doing to the square. The other item which we touched on briefly, and I think Vice Mayor, you made an incredibly important point about how from an ombudsman program we're discussing things with the community, and then the major frustration we see is when nothing happens. And what we're really trying to do is take that feedback and work that into our core business services that PED does as a whole. And that involves code changes. And what we have seen is our zoning code in many situations is fairly stale. It's become aged, and we are fixing that. And we're fixing that based on our council priorities or things that are happening in the community. I think illicit massage is a prime example. I think our response to the landmark alteration is a prime example. We did our resilient city development measures. Our next step is an overhaul of our use permit process. That will address fee issues very similar to the landmark alteration. It will deal with streamlining. I think it's very important for the business community. That's usually where the use permit comes in. And when people are confused about process, they're typically confused about the use allowances. They don't necessarily understand. And to the Vice Mayor's point about noise generation, when a business moves outside and they're creating noise, it violates the use permit. So how do we look at a flexible nature? How do we also allow things that are more at the staff level, which streamlines process? Because really an important piece to our one-stop shop is what we find in the business community is they usually go through this once or twice and they're not educated on the process. They get frustrated very quickly because of the process. So what we're trying to do is find a place where we can put them in a separate space. We can bring the resources to them. So instead of the planner going down there, we come up to that wonderful space that Scott did with the limited budget that we have. The team did a great job of reprogramming that. So we can provide that, safe space for having those conversations. We can provide the education. If you want to come and talk about a permit, we'll do it up there too. A lot of that's response to the feedback that we heard through the community because there's just a lack of understanding in the business community. So we're trying to simplify that process through the use permit and then also put educational resources towards it to where people know they can come to us in multiple channels and we can provide that information so they can be successful in getting their business off the ground. So just wanted to provide the committee an update on that. We are happy to agendize those as they move forward. It's just a real briefing as it goes. I know we've talked about that before, but we're really looking at likely end of summer for the use permit process at this point, finalizing that and bringing it to the council.
Okay. I think to the statements that you just made, it's very important. And I must acknowledge how great the direction that the city center is moving. Because when we speak of communication, part of that is understanding that you may not know what I know, but I don't know what you know, in a very layman's term. Because the reality is an architect can only do so much, but yet a restaurateur can do what an architect can only dream of. So for you to be able to say that we are moving the mountain to you is what I'm hearing now. And for a business owner, that is ever so important to the success of his or her business, is to make sure that staff, city, government is complementing their efforts. And that to me is the ultimate recipe for success. So I do appreciate the efforts.
Yeah, I'd echo that. And then also, yeah, if you could just bring it back as a briefing until it comes to full council, let us know what the process is, like you already said, I'd appreciate that. That'd be great. Anything else from department reports?
So that ends department reports.
Public
The only
comment?
other thing I had just to share is we'll also, now that we're creating the new space over at economic development, we'll be exploring having these meetings in the future over in room 7, over in the city hall, and we're already having other meetings there, APPC and other meetings are occurring there as well, so.
Okay. Yeah, as long as we can get them up on YouTube like we
Yep.
usually do.
Yep.
Great. Public comment? Nothing. Great. With that, we will adjourn at 11:57. Thank you all so much. I know it's 2 meetings in one, so I'm sorry it took so long.
Thank you.
Need to sneeze.